is Social Media for Me, episode 61. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Profit with Law. I am your host, Moshe Amsel, and before I jump into this episode, I want to just let you know about a training workshop that we have going on. It's going to be a 3-hour event taking place on Tuesday, February 5th. Tuesday, February 5th at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more information about that, or if you want to register for it, this is not a free class. The cost for it is $297. And you can go to profitwithlaw.com/LinkedIn, profitwithlaw.com/LinkedIn. And what we're going to cover in that workshop is I have been working on LinkedIn to generate leads in my business over the last 18 months. And I've put together a combination of strategies that I learned from different market leaders and turned around and created this system where I'm bringing in leads on autopilot from it. And I want to teach you how to do the same without spending a lot of time or money doing so. So if this interests you, you definitely want to go to profitwithlaw.com/LinkedIn. Even if you can't attend it live, you will have access to the recording and be able to watch it at your leisure after the workshop is over. So once again, profitwithlaw.com/LinkedIn. Now, you may have noticed for my avid listeners that there was no episode last week. The week prior, my daughter was on vacation, and I took a road trip with her, and we went to northern New York and to Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and had a very nice time together. But during that trip, I contracted a cold, and although I'm not the kind of person that cold derails me from my work, I lost my voice in the process, and almost the entire last week, I had absolutely no voice. It started to come back at the end of the week. I really wanted to record an episode and put it out at the end of the week, but it just it would have been too raspy, and I figured I already missed the Tuesday release, so I'll just wait for this week. Now, what I'm going to try to do, and no promises here, is I'm going to try to make it up to you with an extra episode this week. But for now, I'm going to release this one early. So you are going to be getting it on Monday. And hopefully we can pick up where we left off. So I apologize for the break. I know that some of you look forward to those episodes every week, and I want to keep that consistency for you. So we are going to hopefully be implementing some processes here where I'm not recording this week to week. But that being said, it is what it is, and this is where we're at, and I just wanted to let you know what was going on here. So because of this LinkedIn workshop that I have coming up, I realized that there are people out there who might be questioning, is social media for me? And then the next question after that is, let's say that the answer is yes, then, well, what do I do? Like, what platform should I go out there and put my stake into the ground for and say, this is where I'm going to find my customers? So I wanted to go through this question on this episode and just talk about it. So is social media for me? I think the first thing that we need to look back and say, okay, well, what is the purpose of social media? how would using social media in your firm, what would that do? What would that look like? And what would be the benefit, right? So we never want to put an effort into something unless we have an expected return. We have a benefit for doing so. And the question is what is the benefit in spending time and effort on social media? Now, we both know that social media sucks you in, right? So once you decide that social media is for you, you're worried that it's going to become this never-ending thing that's going to constantly derail you from what you need to do. And that is a very valid concern, and I want you to keep that front and center as we go through this conversation, because you definitely need to constantly being active in making decisions for your firm that are the best for the overall business. So this is not a gut feeling decision. This is not a, I know we need to be out there. It's, do we need to be out there? What platforms should we be on? And who should be doing this work? Should it be me, the law firm owner, or should I have staff contributing or staff working on it? These are all really good questions, all very valid questions, and we're going to start to address them in this conversation. I don't know how much of that we're going to cover in this episode, but we need to start at the beginning. And the beginning is should you be getting involved in social media? So social media has grown to the point where now it is where most of the people at large in our communities are going to social media as the first place to ask people, where do I go for X, Y, and Z? Or to share with people that they are experiencing an extreme life event. So social media touches the lives of so many of our clients in that way. And therefore, we need to really think about who is my ideal client, when are they looking for my services, and how would social media play a part in that? And that's where you need to start the conversation, because unfortunately, or fortunately, standing here behind a microphone, not knowing what practice area you're in, what stage of business development you're in, and all of those questions, I'm not going to stand here and say, yes, you absolutely need to be involved in social media, or no, you definitely should not be. That's not going to be what I'm going to tell you. But what I am going to tell you is that it is definitely something that is a personal decision based on your own situation, your own experiences, and what who you serve and how you serve them. So whenever we're approaching any marketing initiative, and that's exactly what social media is, it's a marketing initiative. It's a way to get your brand out there. It's a way to get name recognition. It's a way to have a platform where you can advertise to people, whether advertising directly is allowed or not allowed in your jurisdiction is irrelevant. Because whether it's paid advertising or whether it's just information that you're putting out there for information's sake, where you're not soliciting business, you still could use social media in a way to garner those initial touch points with potential clients. So the first place to look is to ask, what is my client? Who is my client? And how are they acting and where are they looking? So for example, if you serve business owners and you help them with creating contracts for their business, let's just use a really basic example. Well, very likely somebody who's in business and let's even say that you're more niche and you target a specific industry, let's say landscapers, right? So you help landscapers create contracts for their business, make sure that they're legally protected when they hire people, when they take on clients, all of that. So a contractor who might be your potential client, if they decide that they have gotten to the point in their business where they realize that they need to have this protection in place, and they need to seek out legal counsel to get these contracts prepared for them, where are they going to go? Well, chances are they want a lawyer who understands their business, understands the landscaping business. So they're either going to ask other landscapers, they might talk to their friends and family to see if they know anybody, or they might go onto Facebook into a group that's for landscaping businesses and post a question. Hey, where do you guys go for your legal needs? I need to write a contract. Can somebody, send me in the right direction? And boom, they get people mentioning other lawyers and places, this is who I used and they're really great. And that's how the consumer is looking for business, is looking for you, right? So there's two different ways that people are finding you. They're either finding you when they need you, so they're actively pursuing a solution, and one of the ways that they do it is they look in Google and they search in Google, and that's where marketers are going to get you to buy SEO services or pay for pay-per-click advertising. But then the other place that they go is social media. And responsive social media is not something that you can just pay for and have it show up. When people post in a group, it's not going to generate ads that are going to show up to them. Now, maybe if you're running ads that are targeting people who are interested in landscaping, that target client might be in there and you might show up in front of them, but it's not going to be timed to their specific need. So there's a very manual aspect to this part of social media, because even putting yourself out there by creating videos, posts on your Facebook page, Facebook's just an example here, doing those things is not going to solve the problem of the person who's going into a Facebook group and posting a question. And that's where it becomes important to start to identify what exactly is the purpose of you getting involved in social media. Are you trying to respond reactively to somebody who's actively looking for you? Or are you trying to proactively get in front of your target client and explain to them why they might need your services and drive them to you that way? And answering these types of questions are really going to not only tell you whether social media is for you, but are also going to tell you whether you need to get involved in social media one way or another way. For example, if your target client most likely is going to be actively seeking your services specifically, and there's no way for you to anticipate that in advance. So, for example, a criminal attorney, you can put out all the content that you want into the world. You can write blog posts, you can put out social media content, but at the end of the day, when somebody gets arrested and they need an attorney right then and there, they get one phone call, or they're doing a Google search, or they're actively seeking an attorney, and they're not really looking at content that a criminal attorney might be putting out prior to that. So that's a very difficult place to say that, just posting on social media regularly is going to help. Now, in the long run, does it help? Sure, because your existing clients see it. It elevates you in their eyes, and then they might refer business to you. But that's not the best use of your time, use of your effort, your energy, right? So in that example, social media is probably not at the top of the list of things that you should be doing. At the same time, if you're an estate planning attorney and clients can come to you at any time, most people know they need to come to you, but other things are more important in their life, or seemingly more important, and they just don't get around to it. It's the kind of thing that they're constantly punting the ball and saying, okay, well, I'll get to this next time, 6 months from now, a year from now. Before they know it, they're in their 80s and they still haven't gone and met with a estate planning attorney. So in that case, if you have information that you're constantly putting in front of them, if your name is constantly showing up in their feed, if they're constantly seeing content from you that's helpful, that's driving them closer to making that decision, that's helping them understand how important it is to get in and get a consultation with you, they're more likely to then seek you out and take you up on that offer. And that's where social media can become really powerful. So how do we identify whether social media is for you? So there are some questions that you could be asking yourself that would help you get more clear on this question. But before those questions, I just realized that there's one other caveat, and that is social media is all about relationships. Even on Facebook, when you connect with somebody, it's called a friend, right? Because what social media does is it removes boundaries and allows us to connect with people even though we're not geographically there. Back in the good old days, when you wanted to get together with friends, you'd meet up at the bar or some other place, some other social establishment, and you'd get together and you'd enjoy each other's company. Nowadays, that is becoming less and less frequent, and instead, we're spending our time on social media feeds, looking at what's happening in people's lives and commenting and contributing to their life and letting them know, hey, I know that this is going on in your life. I saw your post, and we move on our merry way. I don't know how this recording is coming out. I keep hitting the pause button because I keep coughing as I'm recording this. So to keep talking and talking, you think that you're fully recovered, and then your body tells you, no, you're not quite ready to do that yet. So bear with me. We do one and done here, so I have an editor who just takes care of adding the beginning and the end to the episode, the intros, the outros, compiles it and all that. But we don't go through with a fine-tooth comb and take out all the hiccups along the way. So other than hitting the pause as I'm recording, there's probably gaps in there that kind of sound awkward, and that's what's happening. So I'm just plowing through here to try to get this information done for you. Anyway, so social media is relationships and relationship building. So it's also a way to find new relationships, which essentially means that look at social media as one huge networking platform. It's one huge place to get out there and shake hands with people virtually and say, hey, I am so-and-so. This is what I do. I'd love to know more about you. And start that conversation. And when you do that, a lot of them are not going to be relevant. You go to a networking event, you exchange business cards with 30, 40 people. If you're really aggressive and shaking hands, chances are you probably walk away with less than that. But then you look at the 30 or 40 contacts that you made. How many of them do you feel are worth pursuing, that you should invest your time and energy in furthering that relationship? Pick up the phone and have yet another conversation. Meet with them in person. Those are few and far between, right? So understand that on social media, it's the same way. You can go out and connect with 100 people on social media, and only 1, 2, 3 of them are relevant for you to continue having a relationship with, which is why we might have an ungodly number of connections, but there's not a huge amount of return from that, so to speak. But that's, understand that this is a numbers game. Everything that we do out there when it comes to marketing is a numbers game. And our job as a business owner is to try to figure out which is going to create the best return when we look at the assets that we have. What are the assets that we have? We have our time, and we have our money. And given our finite assets of time and money, what return can we get from that? And all of the rest is the metrics of the marketing solution that we put into place. And what happens is in the earlier stages of your firm, you have plenty of time, you have very little money. It makes sense for you to focus your efforts on initiatives that are going to cost you time, but not cost you a lot of money, and are going to reap results. And then as you start to pick up business and get more successful, and you have money coming in where now you can afford to spend the money, well, now you can start to replace some of the things that you've been spending your time with things that cost money, which is why you'll find that new law firm owners go to social media very quickly. And law firm owners who have been in business for a while, if they haven't already been using social media, they're very hesitant to do it because social media perception is that social media is a big time commitment. And once you're making enough money to pay a marketer, you don't want to make that time commitment. So you'll have a marketing company do it. But the marketing company, depending on how much you're able to spend, may or may not be a good place to put your social media efforts into. Because very often what they'll do is they'll just do boilerplate posting for you, and that's not necessarily the best tactic for you to take. So you might just be spending money on something that's not giving you any returns when it requires really more manual effort, which you're obviously not paying them for, or they're not willing to do for the amount that you're paying them for. So earlier I said I was going to give you some questions that you can use to help determine whether social media is for you. So question number one is do you target business or consumers? Are you a business to consumer law firm, or are you a business to business law firm? And the answer to that question is also going to help drive you to the question that we need to answer, which is where do you put your efforts? What platform? There's so much out there in social media. I mean, there's Facebook, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, TikTok, Periscope, Stitch, YouTube. Now, some of these you might not think of as social media, but they are. YouTube is an informational channel, but it's also a channel where people can subscribe, people can comment. It would be, potentially social media, potentially a content channel. So we're not even talking about content marketing in this conversation, but content is a big piece of social media. They kind of go hand in hand. Like if you decide that you want to run a blog, or if you decide you want to run a podcast, if you decide you want to run a YouTube channel to give yourself exposure, then how are people going to find those, right? And part of the way that you promote it, that you get people to find it, is by using social media. So if you're doing any of those, then you almost certainly want to have some sort of social media play or strategy. So if you're business to business, then you got to look at, okay, what type of business am I looking to serve or connect with? What is the size? What is the industry? And then let me look at that industry and that size and see, are they active on social media? Is that how they connect with people? Is that where they're seeking information? So, for example, if you're in mergers and acquisitions and you're talking to high-level executives where everything happens on the golf course, then spending time on social media is probably a waste of time. At the same time, if you're targeting high-level executives, but the only way that they would know about you is through an interaction on social media, and you're not even geographically near them, but you provide some sort of service that they wouldn't find otherwise or elsewhere, and you can manually reach out to them, social media could be a great place to get in front of them. At the same time, if you reach out to them on social media and you don't have the rest of the pieces in social media in place, in other words, when they go to check you out at the initial time that you reach out to them, of course, they're going to check you out. That's what we do, right? Somebody sends you a friend request. You immediately say, okay, who is this person? How do I know them? What do they do? We naturally look for those connections and that similarity. If you don't have those things in place, if your profile is not up to date, if you don't have articles that you've written or links or postings that are relevant to what it is that you do, then you're going to miss your opportunity. They're going to walk. So a social media strategy is all encompassing. In other words, you're reaching out to somebody through social media, if that's the play, then you also need to have all these other pieces going, because otherwise you're essentially reaching out to them. It's kind of like walking into somebody's office where everybody in the office is wearing a suit and tie, and you walk in sweatpants and a t-shirt. And that's your initial face-to-face, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm interested in talking to you and having a conversation. You're not even going to be allowed in to see the executive, let alone have that conversation or be taken seriously. So that's the kind of thing where you need to be wearing the right clothes when you reach out and try to shake somebody's hand online on social media. So business to business, how big are they? Are they on social media? Is that the acceptable place to be connecting with them? And I'm not saying that you can't try something new, but chances are, if it's a big boys club where everybody knows everybody, then you got to go the old-fashioned way, and you got to befriend somebody who's in that club, somebody who's in that circle, who you can develop a relationship with, and then end up becoming known amongst those people, where once you get one client, then they refer you another, and so on. Much more manual process, and then social media is not so important for you. So B2B, industry, size, those are the things that matter. And where are they seeking information? So if you're in a responsive mode, are they seeking information online and specifically in social media or not? On the flip side, if you're business to consumer, then social media can be highly effective, because essentially everybody can be your customer. But at the same time, it depends on what your industry is or what your target market is. So let's see if I can use some examples here. So if you're an estate planning attorney, going back to previous examples, I'll use that, and I'll use a criminal defense lawyer, right? So if you're an estate planning attorney, then you can definitely use social media to put information out there and be seen and be heard amongst people who are relevant to your product. At the same time, chances are your friends on social media, your friends and family, people from your childhood, some of them it may be relevant for. They might have a parent that needs it, but you're still not strategically finding them. And to do that, you need to potentially put some ad dollars behind what you're doing, so that you can have the social media platform find those people for you, or participate in groups that are specific for that target market. So, for example, with estate planning attorneys, you might want to become a member of groups where the people that you target are in. And this is where you can start to see how having a specific niche is really important. So, for example, with estate planning, instead of targeting everybody, maybe you should do estate planning specifically for people who are business owners, or specifically for people who have an income over a certain amount, or for people in a specific age bracket. As you narrow down the playing field of who it is that you're talking to, that helps you identify where on social media you should be spending your time, because social media is a really big place. It's not a place, and there's just so many different ways to be involved, and you really need to figure out what that is instead of just trying to do something. How many of us have said, "Yeah, I'm gonna do something on social media," and then we put out a post, we put out a couple of posts, we put out some memes, and we see that it's not getting a lot of traction. Nobody's commenting on it. Not a lot of people are seeing it, and we give up. And that's the end of it. Then we tried social media. Social media is dead. Doesn't work for us, right? Doesn't work for law firms. But what happened is you didn't go into it with a plan. You didn't go into it with knowing how you were going to attack this. How are you going to eat this elephant, right? And that's the mistake, and that's what I want to help you avoid by listening to me ramble on excuse me, on this episode. So figuring out if social media is for you is step number 1. Step number 2 is figuring out which social media platform is where you should focus your efforts. So I keep saying which, and I want to make sure that I'm very clear. When you embark on a plan to get out there on social media, one of the first mistakes you will likely make is thinking that you need to be everywhere. And you're going to say, okay, if I'm doing a post anyway on Facebook, why not also post it on LinkedIn? Why not also post it on Twitter? Why not also put it on Pinterest? And there's a few reasons why that's not going to work, and that's no good. Reason number 1 is the platforms are very different. The type of content that you put out on those platforms is very different. A post that makes sense on Facebook likely won't make sense on LinkedIn, and vice versa. So the post really needs to be tailored to the platform that you are posting it to. The other reason is because, as I've said in the past, when you focus your efforts on something, it creates a certain level of intensity and focus that will help you get to where you want to go. When you start to divide that focus, you lose large amounts of productivity in the process. This works here as well. If you focus on, let's use examples here. So let's say you choose Facebook is your platform. If you focus on Facebook and ignore the other platforms completely, just don't even go on them. Facebook is where it's at. That's where your effort's going to be. You're going to get a certain level of result. If now when you start, you say, well, I need to be on Facebook and LinkedIn. Now you're constantly trying to focus on each of them. You never know which one to focus on. So you do a half-assed job on each one, and that shows. And you'll end up not getting anywhere close to the results that you want, which is just going to deter you from pursuing it further. So you're hurting yourself in the process by not choosing one platform. So the first thing you need to understand is, yes, the question to be asking is which platform, not what platforms should I be on. So how do you determine which platform? It's very simple. It's the same question we asked at the beginning. Where's your client? Where is your client? Where are you going to be able to reach them? Where are they having conversations? Where does it make sense for you to connect with them? And for them to be receptive to that connection and to that information. And that's where you start. So for some of you, a good rule of thumb, if you're B2B, LinkedIn is probably the way to go. If you're B2C, Facebook is probably the way to go. There's always exceptions to every rule, so it's not a rule. It's a recommendation or a starting point. You need to do your own research to figure out where your audience is. For example, my audience presumably is on LinkedIn, right? You would think that law firm owners are on LinkedIn. That's the place to find them. And that was the assumption that I had going in, and it's not incorrect. There's a plenty of law firm owners there, but I used that same assumption when I was preparing for the Law Firm Growth Summit, and had this feeling that we would not be able to find law firm owners by advertising on Facebook because Facebook makes it, I don't want to get too technical here, but Facebook makes it difficult for you to find something specific like a law firm owner, right? Whereas LinkedIn makes it pretty easy. So that's how I went into it. But then $40,000 later in advertising dollars, and I have the proof to demonstrate that not only are law firm owners on Facebook, but we got a lot of our Law Firm Growth Summit attendees or registrants found out about us through our Facebook advertising campaign. So we were able to find them there, and they're there. When I first started in this business, somebody told me that they're like, "Why are you spending time on Facebook? Lawyers are not on Facebook." And it's just funny because you're listening to this, and if you don't have a Facebook account, raise your hand. That yep, I don't have a Facebook account. But my assumption is that probably 95 to 98% of my listener base, if not 100%, have a Facebook account and are probably active on Facebook. Maybe not for business purposes. But just because you're on there looking at family photos doesn't mean that if an ad pops up that is relevant to you as a law firm owner and catches your attention, it does not mean that you're not going to check it out and seek it out, right? And that's the idea, that you have the opportunity on social media to interrupt somebody's life and bring to their attention something they did not know, and that immediately makes an impression on them. For example, I was in a Facebook group where a lawyer shared this thing about the year 2020 with signing documents that you should make sure to sign the full year, because if not, then if you just sign 20, somebody could tack on the last two digits, and it could be any year they want in the from 2000 to 2100, right? So that's a really interesting thing to know. And that caught my attention, even though I wasn't seeking that information. It was, not necessarily relevant to me. As a matter of fact, something that generic, it wasn't even relevant for them to get me as a client, right? I'm not in their target market, or maybe I am. But at the same time, I now know, or I have this association in my brain to their brand. And I also like their page, which means that if they post something else, I'm more likely to see it. If I see it, I'm more likely to make that connection, say, hey, this is that place that had that really interesting fact that I found out. So all that to say that you have to choose carefully, and it has to be done thoughtfully by where is my target market and where does it make sense for me to focus my efforts. So if LinkedIn is it for you, then choose LinkedIn. If Facebook is it for you, choose Facebook. If Pinterest is it for you, choose Pinterest. Twitter, choose Twitter. But choose one platform and one platform only. You can always add another later. The same effort that you make growing the one platform, you can do that again a year later, 6 months later, 2 years later, whatever makes sense for you. But don't try to grow a following, grow an audience on two platforms at the same time. It's just going to stretch you too thin. You're not going to get the results that you want. And ultimately, you're going to throw your hat in the ring and say it doesn't work. Now, like I said earlier in the episode, getting involved in social media, there's many different ways that you can do that. There's so many different aspects to social media, and there's so many different ways that you can get an audience, drive them to you. So I think that that's where I'm going to be headed in our next couple of episodes, is to kind of talk about and frame what those are, what they look like, and maybe plant some ideas, some seeds of inspiration for you on what direction you might want to take. But right now, all you need to do, the takeaway from this episode is decision number one: am I going to have an effort on social media? That's decision number one. Decision number two is, which platform am I going to choose? Those are the only two decisions you need to make at this point. And then once you make that decision, then you can start to dive in to understand how the platform works and how you should focus your efforts. It doesn't necessarily look like posting every day. It doesn't necessarily look like going live on video. It doesn't necessarily look like joining a bunch of groups. It may look like that, but that's a topic for another day. So we'll get there soon enough. In the meantime, I want to remind you, if LinkedIn is your chosen topic, or if you just want to hang out with me for 3 hours and understand what I'm going to be sharing for LinkedIn, a good portion of it would work for any social media platform. The last hour or so, I'm going to be specifically discussing tools that are very specific to the LinkedIn platform, where I teach how to do this all, not necessarily automatically, but not personally, not spending your own time and effort and energy doing it. That last hour, those tools are not going to help you on other platforms, but there are other tools that will. So if this makes sense for you, feel free to join us. So again, profitwithlaw.com/LinkedIn, profitwithlaw.com/LinkedIn. Come and register for our 3-hour workshop that I'm going to teach you how to get leads basically on autopilot in LinkedIn using my strategies and tactics. And we're going to dive into the thought process behind it. So we're going to go into the theory of social media and networking on social media, because this particular play that I'm going to be sharing is very specifically around getting connections on social media and garnering those relationships to the point where they are willing to get on the phone with you, and then you take it from there with a phone conversation or multiple phone conversations. So I am looking forward to the people who choose to join me for that. If you're listening to this episode after February 6th, 2020, do not worry. You can still go to profitwithlaw.com/LinkedIn. You can still join me for the class. You can still buy it. It just won't be live. You'll be getting access to the recording of that class. So I am looking forward to seeing anybody who can join me there. And for everyone else, I hope to catch you on the next episode, hopefully sometime this week. We'll see how the week goes. And I apologize again for the breaks, the pauses, if they're visible, or I'm sorry, if you can hear them on your end. And with that, hope you have an amazing week. Take care. Have you been enjoying the show? We sure hope so. To make sure you never miss an episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button in your podcast player app. Next week, we will be back with more valuable resources and ideas on how to break the mold and take your law firm to the next level.